Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. The Prime Minister said that Pakistan is ready for talks with India provided that it gives a roadmap to restore Kashmir's status. What this means or can potentially mean for Pak-India relations, we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the future of our relationship with India vis-a-vis what's happening as far as Indian atrocities in Kashmir is concerned, the uranium sale in India and the safety of nuclear assets within India. With a view to that, we have a report that we'd like you to see. Can we go to that?
Police had arrested a group of 7 people in eastern state of Jharkhand's Bokaro city who were trying to sell about 6 kilograms of uranium. This was the second incident of attempted illicit uranium sale in India in 30 days. Last month, Indian authorities had seized about 7.1 kilograms of natural uranium and arrested 2 people from Nagpur. Similar incidents have been reported in the past as well. Pakistan Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said these incidents point to lax controls, poor regulatory and enforcement mechanisms, as well as possible existence of a black market for nuclear materials inside India. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540 and the IAEA Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Material make it binding on states to ensure stringent measures to prevent nuclear material from falling into wrong hands. Since illicit trafficking and theft of nuclear material could lead to nuclear proliferation and the possible construction of improvised nuclear devices or radiological dispersal and exposure devices, measures to detect and respond to such acts are essential components of a comprehensive nuclear security program. India's nuclear security policy has come under increasing scrutiny. The Nuclear Threat Initiative, in its security index, painted India quite poorly. The imbuing threat of criminal or unauthorized acts involving nuclear and other radioactive material has grown significantly in India, clearly vindicated by the fact that from July 1998 to May 2021, there have been countless intermittent incidents of such nature. It also indicates the possibility of a nuclear market existing in India that could be connected to international players as well. The very fact that some people stole or illegally mined uranium raises concerns about nuclear safety and the security in India.
Ji, Bastab, what do you feel, how do you see the situation vis-a-vis India, considering what the Prime Minister said clearly today, vis-a-vis the future of this relationship, considering, do you think that we'll be able to get the kind of roadmap that the Prime Minister is talking about? We'll be talking about that also. I have with me today Air Commodore Basit Raza, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for joining us today. I have also Yasir Janjua, who's a security analyst. Thank you for being with us. We also have Dr. Jameel Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us. Ji, Basit, how the same question, I think I jumped the gun a little bit, but how do you see the situation vis-a-vis what the Prime Minister said today as far as the relationship with Kashmir is concerned? Do you think that India will, is it possible even to expect them to give us a roadmap?
Look, it's a very move of a person who is at peace with himself. Although our adversary is a person who is at war with himself.
Right.
So that is the difference. If you see the background of the what has been happening since the beginning of this year, actually the problem started on 5th August 2019 when India unilaterally abrogated the Article 370 and 35A of Indian Constitution, whereby they sort of did away with the autonomy which Kashmir enjoyed. It was safeguarded in the Indian Constitution. So from there we sort of reduced our bilateral diplomatic relationship was reduced to a lower level, and our trade and etc. all stopped. But then there was some background efforts, and if you remember that in February our DGMOs, they sort of talked to each other and they decided that the LOC violations should stop, and they did stop. And then in March there was also a talk that the trade might resume between India and Pakistan. Right. There was a leak in the newspapers and then the government actually controlled it later on, because maybe it was an early thing. There was some thinking at some senior levels, but it was not final decided and the thing leaked out. And then finally in May there was actually it came in the press that the intelligence chiefs have been meeting and back channel diplomacy has started. So this is the background. But then there was, after May, there was an impasse. Actually, whatever talks had taken place, they didn't make a headway. And this present statement of Prime Minister, it seems to me that it's an effort to sort of give a leeway to India, because first we had said that we will not sit on the negotiation table unless the steps of 5th August are revoked, they are reversed, which is very difficult. I mean, you can't expect a person like Prime Minister Modi to sort of take back all that he has done, which is a very sort of his prize achievement. So it is giving them a leeway that at least if you don't revoke straight away, if you don't undo all that straight away, at least give us a plan how you want to go about restoring the autonomy of Kashmir and stopping this process of changing the demography. If India has any iota of peace, desire of peace, they should respond. But the experience shows that they
unlikely.
don't. But it's a positive move from Prime Minister, and let's see what happens.
Yasir, if you look at the history from however far back we want to go, we've had this relationship with India where we make an overture and that is always rebuffed. We don't get the response that we want. All successive governments, whoever you want to go back on, there's never been a different stance on Kashmir. As far as Kashmir is concerned, Pakistan has been very clear. They want to move things. They want things to move, whether it's in the United Nations or the Security Council. They want some semblance of there to be, I would say some rationality there with regard to India, but we don't get that kind of response. This new statement that the Prime Minister has made, again, like Basit Sahab is also saying, seems to be a hope in that direction. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to comment on this, what you just mentioned. I just have to make one clarification and clear distinction. And proudly, this is the first government, I think, in many, many years, especially after President Musharraf. Between that time and now, there were two so-called democratic governments. And the kind of damage to the Kashmir cause that could have been done was done in those two governments, especially in the time of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. His namesake was our ambassador in Delhi, and he has come out in the open and given an interview and said, well, I was instructed by the Prime Minister not to invite Kashmiri leaders when he would arrive in New Delhi. And he was told to go slow on the Kashmir agenda. So this is what an elected democratic government, which had a complete clear majority, was doing to the Kashmir cause. So this is the first time this Prime Minister and this government has raised this issue like never before in many, many years. He's raised it to the United Nations, and that's why you've seen the likes of President Erdogan and Mahathir Mohamad standing up to support us in the United Nations. So that is one distinction I wanted to make, that the Prime Minister has actually internationalized this issue.
Fair enough.
Moving on, now about the Prime Minister Imran Khan's offer of talks. I am not the representative, although I am one of those people who have been officially allowed to come and speak on the media, but I'm not, this is my own assessment. India is cornered. What Basit Sahab was saying, that back in February when the DGMOs went to talk to each other on the hotline, that was at Indian request as well. So we were not the ones, because now Indians are cornered. See their state of economy, see this response to COVID and the situation with COVID. So India is in a tight spot. Last year what happened with them, with China, so they were seeing they can't they thought they could probably engage Pakistan and China, but they are now seeing results that that's not possible. For us, the low-hanging fruits are quite important. And revocation or restoration of the pre-2019 status of Kashmir is the first low-hanging fruit that can at least build some bridges between the two countries.
So you think
because
that
Kashmir is at the core of the relationship.
So you think that the kind of scenario that you've just told us about, the fact that India is at this time cornered, may give us an advantage towards them, perhaps perhaps taking a step in this direction?
It is going to be an advantage because India is in a tight situation right now from all sides. So India has lost its ground in Afghanistan as well. So we are gaining ground there as well. So now it is for India to realize that they cannot exist Well, I've been saying it, and even the Indian scholars like Praveen Soni, he himself says that the only option for India is trilateral cooperation. India, Pakistan, China cooperating rather than becoming adversaries. As of now, we are adversaries because Narendra Modi is a fascist government. He's doing everything, or he's done everything in the past to appease the Hindus and marginalize the Muslims and other minorities. So, in this situation, if Pakistan has offered, this has come as a result of back channel diplomacy. Maybe the Indians want us to say, all right, if you bring us this thing on table, we'll probably accept it. Because if they said it, okay, we are ready to talk about it and we'll revoke it ourselves or restore the position of Kashmir, it's bad for Narendra Modi in his own home ground as well. So he doesn't want to lose that. So maybe this is an effort by them. Okay, we are willing to do this, but the initiation should come from the Pakistani Prime Minister. Maybe this can lead to a very positive development because Kashmir being the core issue and this thing revoked or restored to the pre-2019 position is going to give us a good mileage on the Kashmir cause.
Right. Okay. Let me come back to you. Jameel Saab, how do you see this? Do you agree? You think that this might give us an advantage? You think that because India is cornered, like Yasir Saab is saying, they might be propelled to give us a kind of roadmap. They might be able to perhaps take a step in the right direction. What are your thoughts?
I think if we just look at the whole scenario in the context of the global politics, what way is it being reset? And more importantly, the US change policy, the foreign policy, which is being readjusted in this region in particular and around the globe in general after the assumption of the power by Joe Biden. So if we look at it from that angle, and then we filter out about the India that under what pressure they are now. Of course, internal pressure, COVID, economy, and India has a pressure from its border from China and India. It's more than 3,000 kilometers. And then, of course, we are also on the other side. So India definitely is under pressure. But this pressure, is it sufficient to really expect from India that they would give us a roadmap? To my mind, and with my experience, what I see, India still enjoys goodwill for a variety of reasons because of its trade links still, which is with various countries in Europe and other parts, and then of course India because of its political, geopolitical connections and its investment through their embassies in various parts of the world. So what needs to be done? In fact, this is strike the iron once it's hot. I guess the Prime Minister has taken a right decision and readjusted his previous assessment, previous statement, and that now we are expecting that. But this kind of a roadblock, first of all, I feel that under the circumstances, both the reset by the United States in this region and their interest, whether there should be a peace between the two nuclear countries or not, to my mind, the big powers like the United States, China, and Russia, all of them would like the two nuclear power should reduce its friction. And the only way that this friction could be reduced, because if this friction goes on, it will create a spark, and the spark would not be useful for the entire globe, entire world, as we know the repercussions if anything happens between the two countries.
Dr. Jameel, we keep saying that, and of course, for the strategic, in terms of what's best for our own, for our region, of course, it's best that we find.
I was going to give you some solutions, but anyways, go ahead.
Sorry, I can't hear you any longer.
That's right. So what I'm saying is that now this is the time that we should further do an aggressive diplomacy with three-pronged approach. One is the traditional diplomacy, that through which we should let the entire world know that what's going on in Indian Kashmir, occupied Kashmir, and we should further support it with the two Human Rights Commissioners' report. And one of the reports was presented to the entire world with the tears rolling down the cheeks of the commissioner. So that contains all what we have been discussing on all the channels and media in Pakistan, the atrocities, the killing, the rape, the extrajudicial killing, and the way they have surrounded the entire
Right. Okay.
Kashmir and almost an
I will
open
come back to you.
prison. So
Sabji, Basit Sahab, do you agree? You think that it's the, I mean, of course, the right time in the sense that Yasir Sahab is saying India's cornered, Dr. Jameel is saying that it's perhaps the right time for us to go for a more aggressive diplomacy. Whether we talk about, of course, in terms of letting the world know what's happening. I know that Yasir Sahab has said that this government has made unprecedented inroads into the Kashmir issue, and that is true. But in terms of our approach to diplomacy, do you think what new can we do in terms of telling the world what's happening, in terms of getting India to respond to our overtures? What can you say to that?
I would say that actually Pakistan is relatively a small country and our options are limited. And the window of opportunity for us is very small and it opens for a short while. And that window of opportunity has opened now because our role is central in resolution of Afghanistan and more so in the sort of exit of the US troops, the safe exit of the US troops. So that in fact gives Pakistan some leverage. If that card is played rightly, I think things can move as far as the negotiations on Kashmir are concerned. But Pakistan must be very clear that we have sat on the negotiation table many times before. So merely our objective is not to sit on negotiation table only. Our objective is to have substantive dialogue and with a sort of definite program which should lead to some meaningful results. And Pakistan at the moment can perhaps play because Americans at the moment they need us, and we have seen the overtures, their defense secretary calling General Bajwa a couple of times, then the meeting that took place between our NSAs and the
you think that America would support us at this time with regard to Kashmir?
Do not expect total support from America because they're into strategic alliance at the moment. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, I think for long we have tried to have a bilateral relationship, and even now there is talk of bilateralism. But if you see the history of the events, Pakistan-US relations, it's a transactional relationship. You do this for us and we do this. So this is it. So this is what, with that mindset we should go. I think it's pointless in trying to nurture a long-lasting relationship because at the moment American interests are vitally linked because their only problem is China. And they feel that they need India to stand against China and provide them support, and they are bolstering India. They want India to become a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group, NSG. They want India to become a member of Security Council, and all sorts of blessings are being showered on them. So this will continue. Pakistan cannot expect to be at the same level. So our options are limited, but again, we can play our cards smartly. We have a very great friend, China, and it's okay. We can sort of achieve whatever we want to through good offices of the Chinese. Plus, we can sort of provide an exit to Americans because that is in our interest also. And we have been sort of dealing with Taliban, and we have been exercising some sort of influence. So this is the time that we sort of bargain it smartly and get some movement on Kashmir. And the first thing should be the sort of easing down the plight of the Kashmiris, the atrocities that they are facing. That should immediately stop. That should be our first demand. And then the negotiations can proceed.
Yasir Sahab, do you agree? You think that America can perhaps stand behind us at this time?
It'll be foolish of us to hope for Americans to come to our rescue, you might say. They've not done that in the past. And especially with their new strategic alliance with India, they're not likely to intervene otherwise. They have a vice president now who's of Indian origin. So you can hardly expect the Americans to come very openly in our favor. They're otherwise not very happy at the CPEC in Gawada port being developed with Chinese help. So you can imagine Americans are not going to be. Yes, we have another opening, and that opening is the new bloc that is coming up. Pakistan, Russia, Turkey, Iran, China. So that bloc can put pressure on India. And Pakistan can exert, and what I'm hearing, if that's true, in the next few months maybe, if the Russian President Vladimir Putin comes to Pakistan, that will be the death of Indian diplomacy.
Okay.
That will be a death to Indian diplomacy, because for many, many years, for last 5, 6 decades, India has occupied Russian corridor, and now they've also gone into the, I'm sorry, they've also gone into the US lap. So having said that, if Pakistan and Russia can mend the fences, so you can imagine what is going to happen to India-Russia relationships. So that is why, if anybody can pressurize this 2019 action of the Modi government, is not going to go away as quickly, or as you were saying, as easily as we think. There is going to be trilateral, multilateral diplomacy that is required. Pakistan is alone and not in a position to completely dictate its terms to India. However badly Indians are cornered, but yes, we will need Chinese help, which is already there. They've shown it in Ladakh. And now with Russian overtures, with them turning themselves towards Pakistan, because, and why, Russia is seeing the perfect opportunity. The Americans are leaving, there's a void in Afghanistan, and they can fill that void by their presence through Pakistani help. And they are willing to mend their fences with Pakistan, which we had misgivings about each other. Why not? I mean, enemies of yesterday can be friends of today. So we can be friends with Russia, and we can gain a lot. So this is where I think.
So you're saying forget the US, don't count on US support, try and perhaps garner Russia's relationship with Pakistan, and try to use that
Russia and China.
for Kashmir. Russia and China.
Yeah.
Gee, Dr. Jameel, do you agree? You think that perhaps, it's perhaps more feasible, perhaps more, we can expect more from Russia if we can perhaps have a better relationship with them. Russian president can come to Pakistan, which is what Yasir Saab is talking about. You think that can have a significant impact on our narrative on Kashmir?
Well, one thing I would like to underscore, that Russia and China already are collaborating with each other so far as this bloc is concerned. That's one aspect. And once Russia and China is collaborating with each other, then automatically, under these present geopolitical and geostrategic situation, Pakistan would obviously like to, and they are already in that bloc almost. And one of the indicator is that we are a member of the SCO, where all these Russia, China, and other countries are there. We are a member of the ECU also. Besides that, strategic interest, as Mr. Janjua has indicated, Russian strategic interest now is more in this region. Particularly, they have their interest pinned in this Afghanistan and Pakistan. Pakistan means the help of Pakistan in sorting out the post-withdrawal of US troops. So from that angle, yes, that pressure would also be there. But at the same time, once the United States is trying to bring more strength to India, and with their strategic agreement, defense agreement, and we all understand that Indians have already, for the first time, have given their logistic base. Well, it's a logistic base, but a lot of operation going on. And besides that, there are about 3 or 4 the agreements so far which India has entered into US. And why it has been done? There is one very important point here, that is being done. The US is making all this investment basically because the US wants India to be a watchdog in this entire region against China. And that's why you see the string of pearls and the string of the alliance, string of alliance on both sides. The positioning, what this bloc, the Chinese bloc, and what the alliance of the United States they are doing. So once we have all these factors in our mind, but India under the Modi regime can do a very wicked move, and that by gathering all these support from United States and its allies, they would always like to capitalize it against the Pakistan as well. So that is where our efforts at the multilateral level, as has been discussed earlier. Multilateral level would better.
I hope you saw the report also. What about the sale of uranium and the fact that it can, the effect on the nuclear threat it might pose for India? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that is so significant now. You know, the two incidents in 30 days, and besides that, it is in contravention of the IAEA statute, and that is very clear violation of the safety procedures and guideline of IAEA, of which India is a signatory, Pakistan is a signatory, and most of the countries, and they have to follow that. If that is not being done, then there is a provision in the United Nations Charter, and then India can be taken on task. In fact, Pakistan should, the Foreign Office has already taken up this matter, but it needs little more efforts so far as the legal diplomacy is concerned. And under the legal diplomacy, I think we should, along with our allies, along with our friends, we should knock the door of the General Assembly. We should go to the human rights people also, that these kind of nuclear material, which is the worst material, the most harmful material, is the nuclear material. And very recently, the Nuclear Support Group has imposed a ban on India for the nuclear trade very recently, just during or before this incident. So from just in last about 20-30 years, there have been more than 13 incidents, and somehow the world focus has not been drawn on this, because India has been always claiming that they have a safeguard. But here are the incidents where, and then they have not been able to let the world know through their investigation. In fact, we should call for the international investigation. And IAEA is an authorized body, mandated body, which has the strength of Article 102 of United Nations Charter. So they can be asked to investigate that. Why? Because this involves even the world safety, security, and the world peace, which is enunciated again in United Nations Charter Chapter 1. So from that angle, I think these are the legal diplomatic platforms we should do, and through the traditional
the fact that what's happened in the past, what are some of the lessons you feel in terms of diplomacy that we can learn, and the way we take our case further on Kashmir internationally?
We have to actually, our stand is a principled stand, and we have been sort of jealously guarding it, and we should continue doing that. And with that, because...
You think we haven't been aggressive enough in the past? Perhaps, we've had, there have been instances that, we've gone, there hasn't been a sort of a uniform stand. I mean, we've had highs and lows. There are times that we've taken the issue really aggressively, and then there are times that it comes down and, that hasn't happened. So the ups and downs, the consistency hasn't really been there. Wouldn't you agree?
I do agree, but as Mr. Yasser pointed out, that during the present regime, there's been a lot of focus. Kashmir has been raised almost at every forum. But that ends there. I mean, we have been taken the case of Kashmiris, and Prime Minister declared in Azad Kashmir that I am the ambassador of Kashmir. I'll take the Kashmir cause to every forum. And he did. General Assembly, United Nations, many countries that he visited, he raised the issue. So that is there. But I think this is only one part. What my idea is that we must sort of, economically we are very weak, and that's why in the world, despite our strategic location and whatever God has given us, we don't have that clout which Indians have, because it is perhaps because of their economic might. Look at their figure, the GDP and everything, it's far outweighs. So Pakistan, there's no immediate solution. This has been hanging since last 73 years. It will continue for many more. So what we have to do is to first build a national consensus, because if there's internal rift, internal discord.
You think we don't have national consensus on Kashmir?
We do have, but that actually withers very quickly after that. It should continue. if we have gathered on this one platform for this reason, then it doesn't end there. There are some steps which downstream which have to be taken. We don't do that. We pass a resolution and then we go in our own way. So we should have sort of a unified approach, and some steps have to be continuously taken. And the one major step is we have to do our build our economy, and for that we have to sort of revamp our education system. And these are the things which can one day bring us to that level when we can be more forceful and the world would listen. At the moment, we are making noise, we are taking the case of Kashmir on every forum, we are letting the world know what's happening, but the world is looking the other way.
You think our diplomacy compares to that of India? Yasir Saab.
See, India is a big country, 1.4 billion people. So even if their economy is not doing well, the world powers, those who have to sell their products, they can't ignore them because they are second largest in terms of population. However, a little disagreement with Basit Saab. Today, as we speak, Pakistan's GDP growth rate is 3.9% or 3.94%, and India is -7%. Through this COVID times, Pakistani textiles exports and all other exports have been increasing. And India has been going down. Indian factories have been shut down because of COVID. They've not handled it properly. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that, okay, the Indian importance is going to finish, because they are a large market.
Huge, right,
per se, there's a huge market. However, now the thing is, the way they are doing the things at home, for last many months, they have not been able to handle the protest of the Indian farmers. So their handling of the issues has not been right. And this is what is taking India down. So Modi is actually nailing Indian coffin himself by doing things which are not in the Indian interest. And they are the ones who were they are the troublemakers in Afghanistan, and they thought the peace in Afghanistan will be very detrimental for them because our western border with Afghanistan will become secure. So they never wanted. So that has also happened. Similarly, China. So what I'm trying to say is, when you say our diplomacy comparing to their diplomacy, we unfortunately, and he rightly said, we both live on different planets because we are a much smaller economy. However, our geostrategic presence in this region is very important. Even India, despite the fact that it's a big economy, that does not enjoy the advantage that we have.
But we have.
That is why Russia is coming to us.
But you yourself said that, you know, we haven't really been able to use our geostrategic advantage to our best.
Because in the past, we have been playing politics at home. We have not been unified. The chairman Kashmir committee for last many decades was a man who did not ever speak one word on the Kashmir cause. So how does your diplomacy get promoted when you have a man like Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who's just sitting there for perks and privileges only, and he does not promote the Kashmir cause? This is the first time, and ironically, in the past, because of so much infighting, political infighting between the political parties, we could not take a unified stand. But now this time, the government has taken a stand, the military establishment is supporting it, and they're all on one page. So that is why you see that a country like India has been forced to come and ask us, okay, let's start the dialogue again. Okay, let's enforce the ceasefire violations to be stopped. We did not ask them. So what I'm trying to say is, it has been coming from Indian side. If we push it the way we are now pushing it, and Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, has just rightly hit the nail at the right time and the iron thread, he's told India, okay, if you want to do something, if you want to come back, because what is more hurting to India is the trade stoppage, the Afghan transit trade and the trade with Pakistan. So all we've asked is, restore the status of Kashmir, and we'll start talking.
What do you expect?
I don't think it's going to happen with Pakistan's efforts alone. We'll probably have to, as I said, group. China and Russia will. China and Russia will have to come in the middle, because the way this uranium sale, India is becoming a rogue state. This is the second incident in 30 days.
Right.
So we've got nuclear weapons, they've got nuclear weapons. One stupid move by one of the countries can make the whole region so volatile that this can trigger into something so big.
So where do we go with that?
I think We are building some very good relations with Russia. We have some good offices with China. I think we can use that to pressurize India.
You think that we will get the kind of support from these countries that we may not from the US?
See, enemy's enemy is a friend. Russia now warming up with Pakistan can be very beneficial for us. And Russia has good influence in India. Maybe Russia can use that leverage with India. China obviously may not be, because China and India themselves are not on the same page. They're not friends per se. So Russia could be one. And we could expect some diplomacy from Russian side. And we want to give that initiative to Russia rather than to Americans, because the Americans have not been playing the leading role which we wanted them to play in all the issues we have with India.
Right.
So they've just been saying, oh, it's a bilateral issue. I mean, last time President Donald Trump did say it during the visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan, but then there was a backlash from the Indians.
And he retracted.
And then he retracted. Right. So because he couldn't afford to lose the Indian Americans as well. So he was up for a voting as well, and so he didn't want to do that.
You think that Russians are ready for, I'm going to go to Dr. Jameel, I'll come back to you. Jameel Sahab, you think that Russians might be ready for any disadvantage coming from their support to Pakistan on Kashmir?
No, Russians now, they are a very big player in this entire region now. See what influence they have in the Middle East now, particularly the Gulf countries, and with regard to Syria, and with regard to their influence in that entire neighboring country, including Israel. So Russia for the first time has stepped into the Mediterranean Sea after 25 years. They have their the warships as well. So Russia is definitely trying to enhance its influence and taking the space which is being created by the United States. The United States now has its own problem. They are, and no one less than the President of the United States have already announced that they would first like to strengthen their own home before they go back again to earn the goodwill of the entire world. So from that angle, this is the right time that, yes, we can muster the support. But diplomacy, what it is basically the continuous efforts, and the continuity and consistency in diplomacy is very important. As was being discussed, Kashmir problem, the way it has been projected this time, in fact, last 70 years, it has not been projected in this manner, but only from that angle. And that is a public diplomacy. We have to concurrently take it up. Parallelly, we have to take it up through the traditional diplomacy and through the legal diplomacy. And
you
what
think
I
we've
have
suffered, Basit Saab, would you agree, Basit Saab and Yasir Saab both agree that there has been absence of national consensus. There hasn't, we've had a lot of issues at our own home ground. We haven't been able to reach, we haven't had that kind of support in our own country for us to be able to take this issue further. You agree?
Well, that was very unfortunate part that some of the leaders of our country, because of their own perhaps individual interest, they started compromising on a very vital foreign policy of the cornerstone of our foreign policy, that is the Kashmir. So from that angle, yes, that was unfortunate part, but we have to move on. Now that the momentum has been generated, so this momentum should not be to go slow. Now, basically,
what do you expect?
We've
been talking about that, but what do you personally expect from this statement of Imran Khan? What do you expect India to do?
Well, India, what we are discussing here is the multilateral pressure on India, and we have to do the multi-layered and multilateral diplomacy also, along with our friends, as has been indicated earlier. So India, to my mind, under these circumstances and under the reset by the United States in this region, India might as well give us the roadmap sooner than later. And that roadmap, Pakistan at that time, I would rather suggest, and I will do it in writing also, that once that happens, we should try our best that we should have the guarantors P5 countries.
Dr. Saab, when Articles 370A, 35A were abrogated, the way that things, all of what has been happening after the articles were abrogated within Kashmir, it seems that changing the demographic, all of that, certainly seems to have been a very thought out plan. It's not something that happened randomly.
What do we expect from Modi? What do we expect from our RSS propelled government of BJP? So Modi, who has been RSS member from the age 14, this is what we were expecting. We should have prevented it much in advance. Now, what he has done is the domicile which he has issued is more than 1 million domicile. So obviously, Modi government, it feels that they would be succeeding in changing the democracy and demography of Kashmir. This is what they want, and that's why they have abrogated 35A, and that's why they have abrogated against the international law. They have abrogated 370. And once I'm saying against the international law is very clear, and the Security Council resolution 47 is very clear that they cannot bring it, they cannot change the status quo. And whatever is to be decided, it is to be decided through the plebiscite. So they have already broken the international law. But the fact of the matter is, has the world been made to realize that international law is being broken and it should be taken cognizance? And as we were discussing here in this panel, that can only happen once we have the strength of our friends together, and of course those countries who have the interest in this region. And let me tell you, the entire world has the interest in this region, and particularly in these two countries, India and Pakistan. We don't realize, but wherever I have been, I have worked for United Nations also for over 9 years as a country head in various countries. So I understand how chilling it is once they realize that if any nuclear flashpoint in any part of the world it happens, and in this case, two countries just sitting eyeball to eyeball on this issue of Kashmir, and if it is not resolved, this is a flashpoint, which Prime Minister has already said it. So from that angle, you know what happens? If anything of this kind happens, then the fireball, it goes about more than 55 kilometers in the air, and within seven days, the entire world is affected by the radioactive particles. So world is quite cognizant about this fact. And since they are cognizant, so they are the stakeholders. And since they are the stakeholder, then Pakistan should really gather the strength of all the stakeholders, because they all would be.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jameel Khan. Thank you for being with us. Air Commodore Basit Raza, thank you for joining us today. Yasir Janjua, thank you for being with us today. What happens vis-a-vis Kashmir, of course, will matter as far as our consistency will matter. Our continued support to the Kashmiri cause will matter. Of course, this government has shown an unprecedented enthusiasm. Unprecedented steps have been taken in the right direction. We've seen the Prime Minister openly tell India that perhaps corner India at this time, and perhaps it's the right time for the kind of reaction that we would probably want from India. Let's hope that we can get that. Let's hope that sanity will prevail across the border instead of the kind of extremism and the irrational approach that we've seen in the past. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.